Hopefully the audio works correct. Everybody can hear me okay. And let's get started. So hello, everybody. Good morning. My name is George Bell. I am your 1 Million Cups host for today. So before we kick off with our special guest presentation, let's take a few moments and just share what 1 Million Cups is all about and why we're gathered here today. So pretty much quickly, 1 Million Cups was created by the Kauffman Foundation with a mission to support entrepreneurs by providing education, engagement, and connections within local communities. When 1 Million Cups first started in Kansas City back in 2012, it had only a few communities, and now it has expanded to over 163 communities across the country, including here in Chico, California. At its core, 1 Million Cups is a free bi-weekly program. It's designed to help entrepreneurs connect locally. It's a space where individuals can come together to share ideas, seek feedback, and learn from one another. Our goal is not to lower the barriers to access of education and resources for all entrepreneurs, but also to foster a supportive community environment where ideas can flourish. So with that being said, we will have our 6-minute presentation, and then we will kind of get into about a 20-minute Q&A. Then we'll have a quick wrap up and we'll be done for the day. It's been a while trying to dial in this one. Johnny's very busy, so I'm very thankful that he was able to join us today, and I'm looking forward to getting started. If you would like to learn more information about how you can possibly present on this platform, join 1millioncups.com/Chico. So without further ado, we can get right into it with our 6-minute presentation with Johnny from Cope Notes. So I'll go ahead and drop my screen, let you get started. Oops, sorry there. Got access, Johnny?
Yes, thank you.
Awesome, cool.
It's also cool that I'm getting to do this during Mental Health Awareness Month. So good
There we
timing.
go.
Hey, everybody. My name is Johnny Crowder, and I'm the founder and CEO of Code Notes. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we're doing and then ask you for some help. So from a very high level, what we do is we send randomly timed text messages that interrupt negative thought patterns and train the brain to combat stress, anxiety, depression. We launched about 6 years ago. We're based in Florida, and we are 100% bootstrapped. And I'm a first-time founder, so hence why we need your help. Very quickly, if you're not familiar with the continuum of care and what's going wrong in the mental health world right now, basically, we tell people, reach out to us if you need help. And most people do not reach out. So that system is very broken. And in fact, what we tell people who are not in crisis is we say, tough it out, or wait until it gets really, really bad and then reach out. So basically, we have, there's 5% of people who live in unicorn land and everything is wonderful and they never have bad days. And we have 5% of people who are in real crisis right this second and need immediate support. And we have 90% of people in between that I call the in-betweeners that right now aren't receiving care. And at Coke Notes, we care about prevention and intervention. I'm actually a suicide survivor myself. I live with multiple mental health conditions. So we care about helping people before the crisis, before the tragedy, and not just serving people living with diagnoses, but serving everybody. Also, this is not an app. So there's nothing to download. There's no passwords you have to keep up with or software updates. There's a few reasons why we chose SMS as our primary communication method. The first is engagement. It's actually 50 times more likely that you will read a text message than an app notification. So we knew if we're in the business of interrupting automatic negative thought, you have to read the interruptions. So we knew we couldn't make it an app. And in the center, you'll see preference. This is not just, a lot of times people say, oh, that sounds good for my son or daughter. Actually, 97% of American adults prefer text messaging to any other communication method. So it works across generation. But the third piece, the equity side, is really important because there are tens of millions of Americans who use non-smart cell phones. And right now, almost all digital support is app-based, which means that if you don't have a phone that can download an app, you can't use those resources. So we knew that we wanted to make this as accessible as possible, even to people without a smartphone, without internet access, or even without a data plan. This is how we do what we do. On the first page, it says we use text messages to improve mental and emotional health, and this is how we do it. Each message is written by a peer with lived experience. That means not an AI chatbot, not a keyword generator. It's written by someone with firsthand experience going through whatever they're writing that message about. And each message contains psychology facts, journaling prompts, exercises, some type of health education content that has been vetted by clinicians and researchers. So we're not going to text you, hope you have a good day. We're texting you content that is based on proven psychological principles and reviewed by our clinical oversight panel. And then what's really cool is that no two people ever get the same text at the same time. So everyone has their own unique text sequence with Cope Notes. You never know when we will text you or what the text will say, but you know that when your phone buzzes with a Cope Notes text, you're the only person in the world to receive that text at that time. And remember, it's just one per day. So that sense of novelty and unpredictability is actually what makes Cope Notes effective, which we'll talk a little bit more about on the next slide. And on the bottom right, you can see that you can text back at any time and use your Cope Notes thread as a digital journal. And the reason why people feel comfortable texting back is because this is 100% anonymous and confidential, which means right now, Alan could sign up and I would have no idea that he did. It is completely anonymous. We don't collect names, demographic data, health information, anything like that. This page is for sure the most interesting page in the entire deck. I gave a TED talk about the neuroscience behind Cope Notes. So I'm really passionate about this. A lot of people will say, can you really alter brain chemistry with text messages? The answer is yes. So what we actually do is called ecological momentary intervention, or EMI. And it's a fancy way of saying that we time these messages to be unpredictable so that they can interrupt something called automatic negative thought, which is your brain's tendency to focus on negative thought. It's actually a survival mechanism. In evolutionary psychology, they have actually shown that 80% of our daily thoughts are negative in nature to protect us. And that can lead unchecked, if gone unchecked, can lead to depression, anxiety, stress. So we're actually interrupting those thought patterns with catalysts for positive thought. And over time, this forces your brain to form new neural pathways with coping skills and resilience and positive thought. So we kind of joke that Cope Notes is like brain surgery without the scalpel because it physically changes the way your brain is wired. And up here, it says the first set it and forget it mental health resource. That's pretty important because most resources fail, not because they're not effective, but because people don't use them. You buy a book, you don't read it. You buy running shoes, you don't put them on. This is the type of resource that you make one decision to sign up for, and then each day thereafter, we initiate contact. We don't tell somebody, reach out to us when you need help, because that can be really challenging. Instead, we reach out to them proactively. We have 3 different subscription tiers. One is personal subscriptions for people like you and me. One is gift and family subscriptions, so you can support your loved ones. And then our enterprise side, this is where most of our revenue comes from. It's partnerships with schools for student wellness, businesses for employee wellness, insurance companies, governments, hospitals, nonprofits, serving these large groups of people who want to support a large group, but don't exactly know what resource to give what person. One thing that's pretty important to mention is the pricing. A full year of daily support from Cope Notes costs less than 1 therapy session. So you're talking maybe $100 and change for the entire year versus $150 for 1 therapy session. So we really wanted to make this cost effective. And this is the last page that I'll share. I'll skip the testimonials in the interest of time, but we have plenty on our website. We have collected feedback from thousands of subscribers. We have done research studies that are published in medical journals that have shown that Cope Notes actually works faster than therapy. So therapy takes about 10 weeks to see positive health outcomes. Cope Notes takes about 4 weeks. So this is amazing, also considering the fact that it only takes about 10 or 15 seconds per day to use. So up here, you'll see decreased depression, anxiety, and stress. Those outcomes were measured for people who were in the moderate to severe symptom range, so people who are living with mental health diagnoses. On the bottom left, this is way more interesting to me: increased emotional intelligence, resilience, and coping skills. Those outcomes are measured for people without diagnoses. So the coolest thing about Cope Notes is that you can give it to a very large group and expect everybody to experience positive health outcomes, not just the people who are living with the most severe symptoms. So because I'm at time, my big request, the thing that I need the most help with is, like I said, we are bootstrapped, we are mission driven, we are impact focused, and that means we don't have a marketing budget. Basically, what we do is we tell everybody and their grandma about what we do, and we ask them, can you please connect us with a nonprofit, a government, an employer that we can serve, a school district, some large group that we can serve, because Cope Notes is very, come on, Cope Notes is very affordable. So in order for us to make enough money to hire more people to grow the company, we need to sell a lot of subscriptions. So while I like the idea of individual people signing up, what's actually going to sustain us financially is these enterprise contracts. So my request is, if you know anybody in your neck of the woods who is in charge of the wellness of a large group of people, please introduce us to them or send us an email so that we can connect with them, because what we really need the most right now are partnerships.
Okay, let's give a round of applause for Johnny Crowder, man. Thank you so much. Hey, that was awesome, Johnny. All right, so what we'll do now is you can unshare your screen. We kind of get our gallery up and get a little more intimate as we ask questions. So I kind of want to start off with the question by asking, so if you guys didn't know, Johnny Crowder, he was able to come to our 1 million cups a couple years ago in 2020 in December, which was a super different time that we were all going through with COVID. And, with that being said, I'm sure mental health in the negative way was out up the roof. So what are some of the ways that you shifted and changed since then, and some of the things that you've added to your business?
So before COVID, we didn't do a lot of enterprise. In fact, the couple enterprise subscriptions that we had were canceled during COVID because basically all these big organizations were doing spending freezes. So they were cutting like any cost they could. And we almost went out of business in 2020, which was very scary just because all of these people canceled subscriptions. And then the big thing that changed was we wound up working with government. And I never saw this coming. That was never my plan. But we had a lot of nonprofit customers. And at one point, we had like 7 nonprofits that we were serving in one county. And then the county government reached out and was like, no, 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 you are not doing 7 different contracts with 7 different organizations, 7 different billing cycles. Like, it's way too complex. Let's do one contract for the whole county, and then all the different nonprofits can use it. And I was like, what? I didn't even know you could do that. And then so now government is actually probably our largest revenue source on the enterprise side, because if you think about it, if we're serving a nonprofit or a healthcare provider or a school district, like lots of these groups that we serve can actually use subscriptions that were purchased by their city or county government. So the biggest change for us has actually been updating a lot of our go-to-market and our marketing materials and even our enterprise solution to account for a buyer that before 2020 we had no intention of serving.
Awesome. Okay, dang, that's crazy. Quite the shit. Any other questions from anyone else?
Yeah, go ahead, Kent.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I had my raised hand blends into the yellow of that building over there, so it's kind of. So we've had like fires, floods, snow, etc., and there's a lot of displaced people and people that are kind of put out and desperate for to get supplies and everything, and they usually call 211 or the VOAD groups. So have you been looking into those kind of situations?
Yeah, we actually just did. So we've like partnered with crisis centers and crisis text line and 988 and stuff like that for on the digital side. But what we've actually been doing more recently is we just did this conference called NACHO, National Association of City and County Health Officials, and they had a disaster preparedness and response conference where we set up a table there and we're talking to all these municipalities about including cope notes as like a post disaster resource for people. And actually, even we have a case study of, we did this project in Iowa where there was a huge storm and it like leveled their town hall and like destroyed their downtown. It was like a tornado basically. And they distributed cope note subscriptions to the families that were affected by this. And then the families like actually told the government, like, this made a big difference for me and it helped sustain me. Because keep in mind, like, you want to go to a therapy session, where, how, in some cases, like the wait list was 8 months long or something. So this served as a good gap filler to help people cope with one of the biggest challenges they had ever faced.
That's good. Thank you.
No, definitely. That's awesome.
All right, so it's great to see you again, Johnny, and great to see the progress you made. And isn't it funny how like the universe provides, right? So when you said like 3 years ago, almost 4 now, when you were going through COVID, but had previously presented to us, enterprise wasn't even on your radar, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a really smart model. And I think school districts could be really, I mean, you're already seeing that, it sounds like, but it sounds like that could be, I mean, I know going after RFPs and things like that is not everybody's cup of tea, and and I hate that kind of stuff too, but it's kind of what's what I'm looking for? Kind of if you're going to be going after large sets of populations and having people use it, then, it's kind of a, what's that called? What's the phrase I'm looking for? It's the phrase has something to do with, well, it's an unwelcome thing, but you got to do it anyway. Anyway, so how big is your staff now? And if I missed that because I was driving in, I'm sorry. How big is your staff now?
So we are 7 full-time, and then everybody else is part-time or contract. I since we're bootstrapped, I do not want to hire a ton of people. I want to keep the team lean and mean, and then only hire when we know that there's like tons of work for the person and we can very comfortably afford, like, if all the revenue shut off, we could still afford to pay them for like a long time.
Right. Fair. Are you, when you said you're looking for more contracts and more introductions and things like that, do you want to stay bootstrapped, or do you want to, are you looking for any investors?
We're not actively looking for any investors. Fortunately, the revenue has sustained our team now. Obviously, we want to grow more,
Right.
but we're not going to market. I'm happy to meet with anybody. Like, I'm happy to, connect with an investor or something like that, just to build a relationship, because you never know, but we're not actively looking for investment right now.
Okay. So, but I might want to introduce you to a couple people, because you never know, right? Like, even if it's not a investor relationship, you end up developing that person, the people that they know, right?
Yes.
Right. Might have some copacetic kind of situations. I don't want to hog all the questions, but I will ask one more, and that is, what's besides that new business model, what is the most surprising thing that you've noticed trend-wise in the last 3 years?
Probably, I mean, I kind of already said it, but I never expected government to be a focus ever.
Yeah.
And now it's like we have partnerships with like these huge government associations that exclusively serve city and county governments. And now it's like and now I'll go speak, I'll give keynotes at their conferences, and I do trainings for municipal staff. Like, it's, trust me, like 3 years ago, I would be like, the last people who want to hear about mental health is city and county governments. And now they're like, that's where the greatest demand is. So I think what's been surprising is just how wrong I have been about who our customer is.
Mm. And from the standpoint of that audience, when you think about how long their systems and support of those in need have been broken, I'm sure that in hindsight, it's not a surprise, but it is a big surprise, but like in hindsight, it's probably not a big surprise, just because it's been broken for 40 years and it's just got nothing but worse. Anyway, I'll quit hogging all the airspace here, but great presentation, and I'll get your email later.
I put it in the chat, so if anybody needs my email, it's in there.
I think we got time for a couple more questions. Trey, did you have a question? If not, I know I had one. Johnny, so I was curious. So when you think of mental health in business, they don't, ultimately always mix. You don't, not the first thing I think of when I think of making money. So I would assume that you had a big why. So what was that why for you? Can you kind of get into your story a little bit and why you decided to choose mental health as your business route?
Yeah, I'm very unashamed about this. I never tried to start a business, so I want that to be clear. It's not like I'm gonna build a startup and then I did it. I grew up with severe mental illness, and then I resisted treatment forever, and then I went to treatment, and then I went to school for psychology, and then I started working with behavioral health organizations, like helping people like me. And then I couldn't stand the lack of scalability. Like, what really bothered me was, like, I'm lucky because I went to school for psych. So I learned all of this stuff. And then I was in treatment for 15 years or something. So I learned all of that stuff. But I don't think it's fair that people who don't go to school for psych or aren't in treatment for a long time don't get to learn these same things. Or if they do, they have to like read a textbook on their own, which they might not do, or they have to like read through tons of course material. And I just wanted to find something that would make it easier, because right now we tell people like there's no step between nothing and a therapy session. It seems like such a huge jump, and I wanted to create kind of a bridge between those two things. So my passion has always been helping people who know that they could be doing something more for their mental health, but they don't know what, or they're intimidated by the options. And, when I was growing up, how I dealt with mental health was like, I didn't grow up in the best neighborhood, the best environment. So when I saw men deal with their emotions, it looked like violence or raising your voice or, like real tough guy, macho man stuff. So I grew up seeing that as an example, and then I had to unlearn it. And now I really care about helping other people undo that too, because that's how cycles of abuse continue, is like you just repeat what your parents' generation did over and over again. And I didn't like the idea that so many people are stuck because the wait list is too long, or because they're intimidated by talking with a real person. I'm like, well, then let's build something that doesn't intimidate them, that makes it easier.
Mm-hmm. Breaking the cycles is so important, and people don't often realize they have a choice, right?
Yeah.
They might identify early on that, oh, this isn't right, or this isn't healthy, or I feel under duress as a child, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they know how to undo or not then perpetuate, right? And I think this is really, really helpful, because not everyone even has, to your point, not everyone has a role model to even like say, oh, I have an alternative. I have a different way I could be dealing with things, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes when the elementary schools and such try to approach or help share different coping mechanisms or tools, that's not always well received either, and sometimes can ignite, right, someone who's already struggling.
Mhm.
I think when I think about my constituents under, say, because I travel around to about 20 counties here in the North State. And I don't know if you're familiar, but like this is about a quarter of the state of California, but about 1 million people or less. So it's a huge territory, but it's very, very rural. You know, it's all the things. You can check the boxes: food desert, medical desert, right? Education desert, you know, etc. And people don't really think about that when they think about California,
Mhm.
right? So when you think about all those things that are in deficit, that includes mental health resources.
Yeah.
And when I'm out working with the local champions in each county, because I can't always be everywhere all the time, this is probably 30% of what we talk about. Is because if I'm in the business of talking about economic empowerment or entrepreneurial empowerment for rural communities, part of that is having infrastructure and support. And on one hand, you could be talking about broadband all day, and the next, you're also trying to talk about, well, how, if you don't have health, you ain't got nothing, right?
Mhm.
And part of that's mental health. And so a lot of our local champions, I'm sorry, I'm kind of taking this down a little rabbit hole, but part of our local champions, what they're trying to do in these different rural communities is provide opportunities for the youth all the way up to the adults that might be suffering, but with different opportunities that would help them feel more part of the community or help get them the support they need from the community, even if there's no mental health resources. So I think there's another whole community. This is where I'm going with this, right? There's a whole other community of rural that you could be looking at from the city county government standpoint, because they're all starting to get grant money for these type of resources.
Yeah.
And so, because to your point, regardless of whether there's a disaster or not, you can't get an appointment unless you go to the closest large town, maybe.
Yeah.
Even tele. So anyway, I think it might be another opportunity to uncover and do a little digging on. But it is literally a conversation I've had in at least 70% of my 20 counties, right? And about how they're struggling.
Yeah, we'd love to support out there.
Yeah. I'll try to make some intros there too. Okay, so Shri has her hand up. I'll shut up.
Oh, hi, Johnny. I just wanted to say thank you for Cope Notes, because it's something that the Collegiate Entrepreneurs Organization puts out for their club members on the college campuses.
How
And
cool.
there's over 250 chapters. So it's something that I've been definitely advocating for students to use, and I use it myself. But I definitely see like the importance of it, and just like, thank you for being transparent, because I think in entrepreneurship enough, we don't talk about mental health. And that determines your drive and motivation. That's
I
all.
am 100% with you. First of all, thank you for sharing the info. Second of all, if there's anything more we can do to be a good partner to you guys, let me know. And third, I do a lot of like speaking and training and keynotes and stuff for entrepreneurship groups like EO and YPO and stuff. If there's any way for me to like come, I don't know if you guys have like an annual meeting or conference or anything like that, but if there's any way for me to contribute, please shoot me an email. I just sent you a LinkedIn request as well, but just keep me in your back pocket, because it's so funny. I tell people like the second hardest thing I've ever done is survive decades of abuse and suicide and self-harm and severe mental health conditions. The first hardest thing I've ever done is start a company and like keep
Right.
it alive. So I deeply empathize with people who are building things, and I want to encourage entrepreneurs however often as I can.
Thank you so much. And it's funny you say that, because we are planning our annual conference coming up October 31st to November 2nd. So I'll send you some information about that. And if it works with your schedule, I'm sure we would love to have you come speak.
Please, that would be awesome. That's like my exact type of person I want to support.
Okay.
And that's excellent. I'm the advisor for the local chapter that she's part of, and that's an excellent point, Cherie. I think also it'd be nice to have them zoom into the local chapter.
Yeah, I'll talk to the girls about it. Maybe we could get you on as soon as the fall semester starts, or even open it up to all students on the campus, because this is not just pertaining to entrepreneur college of business students, like across the campus, especially since the impact with COVID and people not feeling comfortable kind of being transparent or showing their vulnerability. I feel like this could benefit the whole entire campus, staff, administration included.
Please, actually, would Shepard and Sherry, would you mind putting your emails in the chat, and then I can like start an email thread with you guys about these?
Sure.
Well, as we share our information with one another, I did want to again thank you, Johnny, for being here today. It was definitely a privilege having you. Also, I did see your TEDx YouTube video, and I thought it was very phenomenal. And it was great to see you kind of just up there doing your thing. So, I'm definitely happy I had a privilege to meet you. We will get wrapping up here for the day. If you do have to hop off, Johnny, I completely understand. We'll just kind of do a few, uh, give some information out for the rest of the community on some of the stuff that we have going on. But thank you for being here with us today.
Of course. Thank you guys so much. I'll shoot you both emails ASAP.
Sounds good. Thank you. Hey, y'all. So we had Johnny. That was pretty cool, pretty good. Again, we want to thank you, myself and Eva Shepard, our chapter lead, for you guys all being here this morning. And we want to shout out some of our sponsors, Chico Start, Growth Tech, Global Entrepreneur Network, Build with Ferguson, American SBDC California, and Startup Grind. We do have a few events coming from our Chico Start community. You can find these events at chicostart.com/events. We have our Grow with Google tomorrow on Thursday. After that, next week we'll have another 1 million cups from NutriCompass. They have an application on how to better get in shape, which will be at 9 to 10 next week, Wednesday. And then we have coming up soon, a special event from Tri-County Bank hosted by them, identifying common fraud and security risks for small businesses. It's very important for us small businesses to be able to have resources on how to deal with fraud. That being said, feel free to also join our newsletter to get more information on events that we have at /chicostart.com. And then lastly, I did want to leave you guys with a quick quote that says, "Success is not about having a great idea. It's about having the courage and persistence and adaptability to turn that idea into reality." So again, I want to thank you all for being here, and have a good rest of your day.